my guests. I'm Carrie Kirk-Flew. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Conference of Mayors, and I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Janice Marinoff, our president, who will just give you a little brief introduction.
I'm not doing that. So I'm just gonna. You
can
take it back.
I'm sorry. You're gonna let me do it.
I don't have anything in front of me. I don't have anything in front of me. But what I did want to do is I did want to make sure to get on for at least a brief period of time and to thank American Water and Mark Dunna, the president, for certainly initiating and sponsoring this opportunity for mayors, and also all of the partnership and support that you have provided over the years to the Conference of Mayors and to many of the towns in the state of New Jersey. Just express my personal appreciation and the appreciation of the conference, for all of that engagement. It's very valuable. I hope you find it likewise valuable. And so this was really more of a hello, thank you. We appreciate you. And for the content, I am going to turn it back over to Carrie and to you and your staff. I'll stay on for a little bit, but I can't stay on for the full time.
Thank you, Janice. Essentially, I believe she covered what New Jersey American Water asked that we do. Just basically, members to introduce the session today, which is a discussion on water and wastewater challenges, and remind you that the New Jersey American Water is a major player in our business council, and we are so delighted to have them as partners with the New Jersey Conference of Mayors, who have been sponsors for many of our programs and projects. And this is another one of our the opportunities that we provide our mayors, a kind of an educational discussion on a very important topic. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to President Mark McDonough, who I guess will give some remarks and introduce the rest of the presentation for today.
Thanks so much. And I will be very brief, as my team has a great presentation ready to go. I'll simply say, I was talking to the Burlington County Chamber, in this day and age, water and wastewater operations have become more and more complex, and New Jersey American has to run, serving roughly a third of the state. We run some of the most complex systems out there, and in that water and wastewater is all we do. We are good to take that expertise and apply it, but what we most want to come out of these types of events is to reassure folks that we are a solution provider for them, and that we want to be available. We want to be sharing information. Successful water and wastewater operations statewide are our primary goal. And so we're thrilled to be able to be here. We appreciate the conference. We appreciate President Marinoff and the opportunity to get to speak. So I'm going to turn it over to my staff and get to the important stuff of what we have to talk about today. Abby?
Good morning, and I'm going to ask Kelly if you could, there you go. She's going to run our slides for us behind the scenes here. So let me introduce myself. My name is Abby Barksdale. I'm Director of Business Development. It's our pleasure to be here today. Mayor Marinoff, thank you for having us. Thank you for your continued support of Business Council members and the continuation of such a strong Conference of Mayors throughout the year, not just at the summits and conference. As Mark mentioned, we are the largest investor-owned water and wastewater utility here in the state of New Jersey. We serve approximately 2.8 million, so almost 3 million people here in the state. That equates to 1 in every approximately 3 people in the state of New Jersey. It's a lot. 192 communities, 18 counties. But more than anything, that's a really broad reach here in this state. But we are the local water and wastewater provider to all of the communities that we serve. We are locally based. We are additionally regionally based, and as you hear, we also have a statewide footprint. So it is our great honor and pleasure to serve the customers on behalf of American Water and provide, as Mark said, consistent, reliable, affordable service, both on the water and wastewater side. To give you a little bit of context, as I mentioned, we do provide both water and wastewater services. On the water side, we serve approximately 660,000 customers. On the wastewater side, about 55,000 wastewater customers here in the state. And quite honestly, we are hosting this type of education opportunity with organizations throughout the state, and we are trying hard to provide education to communities that continue to own and operate their system, so that we can be a best practices provider, a solutions provider, and just a good neighbor, a good partner here in the state of New Jersey. I'm going to go to the next slide and introduce our guests today. We have two really wonderful colleagues. Our Vice President of Engineering, Don Shields, is here with us today. Over 25 years of industry experience, with over 20 of that being here at American Water. Additionally, Cassandra Malone, over 16 years of industry experience. You that have met New Jersey American Water employees, you will recall that many of us have longstanding history here at the company. A lot of us like to say that if you are in the field of water and wastewater, it truly is a calling. This is not something that, in an industry, quite honestly, that, you know, kids are in school and they wind up saying, when I grow up, you know, this is the place I want to be. But when you learn about the industry and the impact it has on the communities and people, it turns into a lifelong calling. And we're proud that many of our employees wind up staying for their entire career. That being said, we're going to move over, and Don will give us a few points and a few different topics, from water and wastewater 101 to you know, the challenges we're seeing, to regulation, increasing regulation here in the state. Cassandra will then take over and talk about, again, you know, pieces of that, those regulation, and then move to water quality. And then I'll come back and wrap us up with, what does it look like from our standpoint? What solutions do we provide? I do want to give one disclaimer here. We are recording the session, and it will be provided and made available to other members and municipalities through the conference. So we're excited to have this as an additional resource. Don.
Thanks, Abby. Appreciate that. Appreciate the kind words. And indeed, a calling. I remember being a young kid, probably 5 years old or so, down on Long Beach Island, watching the federal infrastructure dollars, believe it or not, putting in new wastewater pump stations to replace old primary treatment plants. Still to this day, I will never forget that. So I think it started when I was really little. But anyway, I'll give you the quick 101 here on waterworks, from source all the way through to discharge on the wastewater side. And I'll keep it brief. So on the source water side, we're either taken from a river, reservoir, or groundwater. We're treating to remove solids, particulates, also sorts of other nasties that are coming through from that surface water. Taking that out, filtering it, disinfecting it, making it safe, getting it out into the distribution system. You'll notice that you see a tank there, making sure we have adequate fire protection, making sure our industries and our commercial buildings are getting what they need on a day in, day out basis. So you see the house there, usage. We'll push that wastewater back out into the system. So we've got robust collection systems. When we collect, we'll bring it to a treatment plant. Take the other nasties that come from us, we'll take them out. We'll filter, we'll disinfect, and protect the environment on the back end as well. And just real quick, in the middle, you'll see the dewatering there. So we get solids from both sides of the house. and a lot of beneficial reuse on that as well. So if you go to the next slide.
Hey, sorry, Don, can I just jump in and we can go back
Sure.
to that previous slide?
Yeah.
I just want to make mention of this because I love this diagram. It's really great for the treatment side, but the pipes in the ground, right? We don't often think about those. We don't see them. So, you know, the representation of this with these little blue lines really just doesn't do it justice with all of the components that are out there. You know, on your drinking water side, you've got hydrants, valves, booster stations. On the wastewater side, you've got lift stations, manholes. You know, you got your service connections. There's just a lot that really does go into it. And so I just wanted to add on to this diagram from that respect. So
Absolutely.
thanks, Don.
Thanks, Cassandra, because I think if you look at those blue lines coming from the tank to the house, we have 9,000 miles of those. We have almost 50,000 valves. There are, you know, I don't know, 75,000 hydrants, somewhere in that ballpark. And then on the other blue line coming out of the house, there's you know, on our wastewater side, it's probably close to 1,000 miles of pipe. So tremendous amount of infrastructure that's in the ground, which is a great segue. Thank you, Cassandra. You can lead me to the next slide. So what do we see, what do we not see? And most people don't see the effect of the lack of investment over the years on both the water and wastewater side. So, you know, a couple of key points here. You can see the amount of funding that's needed, and the American Society of Civil Engineers has been doing this report card since 2001. We've seen some level of improvement, particularly on the drinking water side. It is a C, which that's, you know, it's not great. And there's significant need, that 8.6 billion you can see over the next 20 years. The wastewater side is even more. Wastewater is harder to treat. It's harder to convey, a lot of gravity systems. So you have deep sewers that require a lot of work. And you can see the amount that's needed in there. So why don't we go ahead and get to the next slide? Because this conversation kind of builds on those two start points. You talk about stuff, we've got pipe in the ground. It's probably over 100, a lot of it's over at least 70 years old. Some that's 120 years old. And believe it or not, some of that pipe is actually still providing us an adequate level of service. Most are not, but some actually still is. And that's a testament to some of the construction techniques that were done many, many years ago. Some of the newer stuff from the 50s and 60s is not as well constructed. And that's a lot of the stuff we're focusing our efforts on now. As stuff gets older, like me, I need a lot more work. Our systems need a lot more work. So you need to invest. You need to invest in yourself, right? You need to invest in the systems. And I think this deferred maintenance, this kind of out of sight, out of mind type of theory of, hey, we'll fix it when it's broken. What happens when you fix something when it's broken 3 or 4 times is you could have spent the same amount, you could have spent a smaller amount of capital to fix it once and for all, and it'll be good for the next 50 years. So these are just a couple of examples on the pipe side. This stuff that you see on the top left is tuberculated unlined cast iron main. That's iron, essentially, what you're seeing there inside that pipe. That's basically crusted up over time because the pipe was not. And then kind of in the middle there, you'll see the smaller pipe. We actually will take that and it'll be like brand new. Sanitary sewer overflows. So we talked about sewer side. Those are actual overflow situations, real pictures from a real site that shows what happens when you don't invest in taking care of what's called infiltration and inflow. Leaky pipes, rain events, they lead to that type of issue. And on the larger transmission side, that's a 48-inch diameter, 60-inch diameter pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe, major transmission main that suffered from some failures due to some poor pipe installation techniques back in the 70s. So again, these are the types of things that we have to deal with day in and day out. And again, just pipe. We have treatment plants that need significant investment, and we'll show an example in a bit on those as well. So if you go ahead to the next slide. So the infrastructure side, yeah, sure, there's challenges, tremendous amount on the financial side, but we can't forget about the workforce. So I'm not getting any younger. Mark's not getting any younger. We're looking at, a few years down the road going, what's next? But there is a brain drain that's happening throughout the industry. It's been going on for the past few years for sure. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we've got the opportunity to train people. We've got a Water Up program now that we're working on to get younger folks interested in the business. Again, ride your bike around and look at infrastructure. But when you're a kid, but more importantly, how do you work with say like a Hope Works in Camden, who we're very close with, who started the Water Up program? Get folks interested in technology, science, engineering, and math. Get them interested in this. It's a great long-term, well-paying job, very fulfilling, because you're dealing with protecting public health on both the drinking water and on the wastewater side. So it's not just the financial piece; it is also that workforce piece. But more importantly is, how the hell are we going to pay for all this stuff, right? So you've got, we talked about the needs, and this chart kind of gives you a bit of a slice of that's all that's allocated from either federal or state resources. So the iBank and I Commissioner LaTourette, the governor, we're putting money to work, and it's great, but it's a slice of what the needs are. So who ultimately is going to pay? It's ratepayers. So what we've done as an organization is we've grown our footprint, that 650,000 customers, as we start to pull in smaller municipalities of 1,000, 5,000. We're able to take care of those issues that particular municipality had. To give you an example, Haddonfield. They were staring down the barrel of a $20 million nut for 4,000 customers. That's a huge increase for a very small customer base. We're able to come in and fix those issues and spread those costs over the entire New Jersey American water base. That's a huge advantage for us. And we don't take it lightly. Abby talked about solutions at the beginning. They had a real need, and they had a real capital driver, and they had a real challenge in front of them. We're able to come to them and say, we can take care of this. Not only will you be able to defease debt, but you'll be able to get these issues off your hands into professional hands, take care of it, and we move on. So go ahead to the next slide. So our increased regulations, and I'll ask Cassandra on the next slide to kind of talk through some more detail on this, but what we're finding is more and more things in the water. So you've heard PFAS, right? So let's talk about perfluorinated compounds. They're all over the place. There is a lot of debate about what are the appropriate levels. We got health guidance limits, and we've got MCLs, and New Jersey's going to do this, and New York is doing that. New Jersey's made the case through its own Drinking Water Quality Institute that its levels 10, 13 parts per trillion should be regulated. We've invested nearly $100 million in multiple treatment plants to take care of those issues on the PFAS side. Okay, that's great. We took care of that. What's next? Well, 1,4-dioxane is coming out too. We just invested about $10 million in our Delran plant system to take care of 1,4-dioxane. So again, having the ability to react quickly to increasing regulation is something that we're very proud of. And the proof's in the pudding. Our investments show that we are doing that. Talk about Water Quality Accountability Act. What are you doing as a municipality, as a water purveyor, to make sure you've got an asset management plan? What's your 10-year plan, 15-year plan? How are you addressing these needs? What are you doing in terms of maintenance? Are you exercising your valves? Are you doing system inspections to say, this is where I need to invest? And if you don't, now you get into a situation where the state's looking at a system and saying, we're going to give you a notice of violation for failure to meet these MCLs, failure to maintain your system. And all that does is just drives up cost. Drives up cost for everyone. And we want to be in a situation where, sure, there's challenges, but we can come in, take care of these issues, and move on from there. So why don't we go ahead into the next slide?
And Don, just to add on to that,
Mhm.
we recognize wholeheartedly that those investments are oftentimes hard decisions for municipalities to
Absolutely.
make.
Absolutely.
These are pipes, predominantly pipes in the ground that we're talking about, that people don't see, they don't touch, it doesn't resonate on an everyday basis. The new road does, right? The Wawa, on the
Yep.
corner does.
New bridge.
And
Yep.
so it is often a really hard decision to say, oh, am I going to put the dollars to new roads, or am I going to, put it towards preventative maintenance in these systems? And we understand that's a balancing act, but oftentimes, the pipes in the ground that no one sees, that's where we get to, as we started this conversation off and saying, we'll deal with it when it breaks. And we have the ability to be addressing these things proactively.
Oh, and Abby, it's a great point, because a lot of what we do when we have our systems is we'll work with the municipalities on the road paving program to ensure that hey, we're going to pave here, 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 and here. Okay, our assets, we've looked at our prioritization model and said, you know what, we really need to replace those pipes in that street before you go ahead and pave. So there's a lot of collaboration that we do once we do come in and take something over to make the appropriate investments. There's that, hey, wait a minute, make sure before you pave, we take care of these issues. So great point, Abby. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in as well and say, so that hidden infrastructure, right? I know for me, when I try to explain what my job is to family and friends, their eyes just kind of glaze over. They have essentially no idea what I'm talking about, and that's okay. Um, but I think that's just a general indicator for everyone, everyday folks, right? If you don't breathe and live this, you don't really know about it. If you open your tap and your water doesn't come out, or you flush and it doesn't go away, that's when you're going to start caring. And the way that I see it as a utility, if you're having to reach out to your customer base with a potential issue, a main break, so on and so forth, not that we don't want to talk to you, but you need to be aware of it. And the whole point is, we want to be able to take care of it before that actually happens. The only time we really want to talk to you is to tell you about all the great investments that we're making to improve the quality of your water and the quality of just your communities in general. So I just want to add to that aspect of it. And then looking to what Don had said, sorry, Kelly, if you could just go back to the previous slide. What you'll notice here is we've got two buckets of regulations, right? You've got your safe drinking water, you've got your clean water, right? So we've got both sides of it. Just notice that in New Jersey, there is a Water Quality Accountability Act that goes to public drinking water systems. Notice the absence of a analogous Clean Water Act side regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So as we move to the next slide, and I'll let Don start talking again, and I'll stop. But as we move to this, I think you're going to start to see that. DEP this past year put out a letter to industrial. We call them IPs, which is a fun acronym, but anyone who is connected to your sewer collection system has an industrial pretreatment program. DEP has asked that wastewater utilities take a survey, find out which of their customers have these IPs, and if there are PFAS, being put into the waste stream. So I think again, you're gonna see that wastewater side catch up to where we are in drinking water.
Yeah, Cassandra, that's a great point. I mean, on the collection system and the wastewater side, emerging contaminants, are listed here. People have primarily thought of them as drinking water side issues. They're a huge issue on the wastewater side. So what happens is you don't necessarily destroy them until you basically burn them, which is something that happens when you settle sludge out of water or wastewater. So solids come out. What you're doing is you're essentially concentrating those perfluorinated compounds within that sludge. So now what do you do with the sludge? Well, you're going to burn it. Well, where does it go from there? You got to land apply it. Well, it's going back into the soil. So it's this continuing issue, this legacy issue that we're just going to have to deal with, I think, for years and years to come. And there's a lot of regulation that's going to be coming down the road on the wastewater side that people are going to go, wow, am I really ready for that? Well, I know we are. And I know there's some of the bigger entities are, but this kind of goes to Cassandra's point about, people tend to forget about the wastewater side, and they do focus on the water side. And with that focus, you see the Water Quality Accountability Act. We talked about asset management plans, maintenance, cybersecurity, huge issue these days. And then, we haven't even talked about lead service lines, and here it is. You're in a 10-year ticking. I don't want to call it a time bomb, but we got a deadline. We got to meet in 10 years. And, places like Newark, they've done a great job. Kudos, hats off to them. What did it take? Investment. It took a sizable chunk of change to take care of that issue, take care of it quickly. So they're making great strides. We've replaced about 10,000 or so over the last couple of years, just on our own. We're much more geographically diverse and hotspots all over the place. Towns like Hillside and Irvington, in disadvantaged communities, we're focusing on them because that's where the issue is. That's where the older infrastructure is. So we're making the investments in those communities in order to take care of our customers. So one thing I do want to talk about quickly on the lead service lines is the ability for the investor-owned utilities to spread those costs over all of our customer base. We're working with the BPU right now on a service line program that will socialize those costs. And again, when you're talking about $2,500, $5,000, $10,000 per service line, that adds up. And I think there's a real challenge on the municipal side that has the ability to do tax liens and some other things. But there's questions, right? Are they actually going to ask customers to fund their side? Oh no. We have the ability, and we've taken the position that no, we will fund the customer side, and we'll ask all of our customers to take that burden on, because it results in a bill impact of less than $1. So it's the benefit of size. Like Mark's heard me say that we're the Walmart or the Home Depot of the water industry, and which is a good thing. The bigger you are, the more challenges you can tackle, and the easier it is for you to spread costs over that bigger customer base. So, Cassandra, is there anything else that you want to hit on any of these topics that are in here?
Yeah, thanks, Don. I keep going back over to the dark side. That's what I call wastewater, and I apologize if anyone is offended by that who is a wastewater person. But we talk about emerging contaminants, and we had an interesting summer here in New Jersey with the drought. So one emerging contaminant that's missing from here is cyanotoxins. If anyone has heard the term HAB, stands for harmful algal bloom. They're a function essentially of, fancy word is eutrophication, but I know that's a little bit too sciencey. But in any case, right, these harmful algal blooms form, make water bodies essentially unusable for recreation, and for drinking water we can treat for sure, but it adds another layer. But essentially the source of these algal blooms, it's kind of like a perfect storm. You have to have all the ingredients in place. So that's an excess of nutrients like phosphorus, ammonia, nitrates, nitrites, low precipitation, stagnant water, and higher temperatures with lots of sunlight, right? So all of these things happened this year. And if anyone had seen the millstone this summer or is familiar or following that story, and I encourage you to check it out, it essentially looked like a river of pea soup, not like PEA, just to be clear. But also the other one works because it's essentially a function of wastewater treatment plants discharging excessive nutrients in the face of drought to kind of fuel or feed those blooms, right? So it's something to be aware of on the other side. It is an emerging contaminant that you need to be aware of to protect your communities. Again, now going back to the drinking water side, I will add we have our unregulated contaminant monitoring rule coming up in 2023. That's an EPA regulation. You see all the PFAS listed above as emerging contaminants. These were essentially regulated under UCMR 4, right? The data that was collected by the EPA, the levels at which they exist in the environment and the levels at which they are, I guess, how ubiquitously they're spread throughout the state. So when you have UCMR 5 coming up, it's kind of like a PFAS ban. If you watch Emerald at all, I know that's like an older thing, but it's just bam, all the PFAS. They're going to look at 29 different compounds, right? So that's 29 more forever chemicals to be aware of and be ready for. So.
Good stuff, Cassandra. Yeah, I think it's just that we could fill up probably 15 slides worth of stuff that's coming up, right? So yeah, we won't belabor that point, but just know there's more coming. So go ahead into the next slide and we'll talk. I think I'm turning it back over to Abby for benefits.
And I think, it's a nice transition. It's a nice transition of having this diagram depicting ownership of service line.
Oh, good point.
So we should just put out there that as New Jersey American Water, we take ownership. So when we acquire systems, normally a municipal customer has responsibility for their entire service line. You can see that depicted here. So they would have responsibility, ownership and responsibility from the main all the way to the home, okay? New Jersey American Water, we take responsibility of a portion of that line upon acquisition and closing of a transaction. And what does that mean? That means a decrease in risk, both financial as well as operational risk, both for the resident, but also the municipality, right? You don't have to, think about, fielding the calls, dealing with the complaints. But on the resident side, and we just had a perfect example in Central. We had Bound Brook close, just over a month ago. And for example, August 10th, there was a customer who had a violation on their home that said you have a sewer lateral collapse and it's in the street. And on August 10th, it was their responsibility. On August 11th, when we closed, it was our responsibility. It then meant we spent that day somewhere in the $40,000 to $50,000 range to open the road, fix the issue, repair the road to municipal standards. So that's a huge financial impact. And this is a piece that, although we as a company sometimes take for granted because we know we're doing the right thing by taking this responsibility on, it's also something that customers honestly don't think about. They don't think about the service lateral until something happens. So it's a huge benefit. And if we go to the next slide, let's talk about some of the other benefits that we provide here at New Jersey American Water. So I should preface all of this by saying, what is the solution that we can bring? We just talked about all the challenges. Wonderful. Well, okay, what can we bring to be helpful in that? Our business model, quite honestly, is to come in and acquire systems, to bring the solutions, to bring our expertise, to bring best practices to the systems that need it and that could receive value from experiencing best in class service. So that looks like financial benefits, such as our deals typically have an upfront purchase price for the assets of that system. That price and money goes to the municipality. There is a very direct use of funds that's laid out through municipal sales statute. So a community must pay off their utility debt first, and then it can be attributed to other municipal debt, which in turn can free up additional funds in their municipal budget. Second, it goes to rate stability. Don alluded to it earlier, but spreading the cost over the magnitude of customers and our scale of which we have here in the state allows for the rate impact very minimal. We have regular, so they're predictable as to when these reasonable rate increases would occur. There is a very transparent and public process. Every few years when a rate case does go before the BPU, our rates are regulated by the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. So we are not, here as a sole, provider running around making up rates. We are regulated by the state of New Jersey, and we have to follow a very close and careful process. Many communities wind up seeing much more stable rates when they come over to be a New Jersey American Water customer. Again, back to the basic math, right? Because we invest proactively, we then have the ability to spread that cost over a larger customer base. Additionally, once a customer rolls in and a community rolls into our footprint, we have the ability to provide and offer low-income assistance programs. Don, you mentioned it before. Municipalities wind up rolling their debt over to tax sale, and then there's implications of that. We have the ability to pull more levers, to work with customers on more options. It also, quite honestly, takes that risk. We talked about financial risk. We talked about operational risk away from the municipality. Many of these systems anymore, although we all, keep them close to us and, they're near and dear, many of these water and wastewater systems are risks. They're liabilities to have anymore. We talked about the amount of main breaks, amount of investment that is needed as we look forward, the investment that's required to comply with the regulations that are here today and that are coming. Those are liabilities. And then the last is we offer and are excited to offer the opportunity for existing employees of systems. We want that institutional knowledge. It's one of the number one things that come up when we have these conversations with municipalities. What happens to my staff? What happens to my employees? They get the opportunity, if a municipality is open to it, they have the opportunity to come over and join a wonderful team and increase their career trajectory to wherever they may want to go. So let's talk about two quick things here, a process to sale. So there are two processes. One, we call it a traditional sale route. That would include a referendum going on the general ballot and election in November. So let's talk through that. There is a second process. We call it WIPA, but that is assimilated with the Water Infrastructure Protection Act. Let's take one at a time here. This is a process that a municipality does their due diligence. They understand what they have in the system. They've identified a challenge, whether it be financial, operational, institutional knowledge, employee, whatever the challenge may be, that drives them to say, we need to start considering solutions and outside, considerations for our system. We all come to the table. They put out a RFP, request for proposal, and they then have respondents. God willing, we respond, and even more so, hope we are the highest and most qualified bidder to provide those solutions. And then we move forward. The council and governing body then accept the bid, and we move forward towards an education and referendum campaign throughout the fall and leading into that November election. We do that. This is what we do. We are really good at educating customers, working with communities, and sharing the benefits of sale. And what we do is we work in conjunction with the communities, with the municipality, with the governing body to get the facts out. We are true believers that the facts speak for themselves. And so this entire process takes somewhere in the 12 to 18 month time frame. It's all dependent upon when a bid comes out. And then after the referendum, knock on wood, God willing, it passes. It then takes a certain amount of time to transition. And when I say transition, I mean the knowledge, customer information, asset information, all of the components of a system. And then we close the deal, shake hands, walk out the door. And as we started this conversation off, we then have the responsibility to maintain that system. Let's go to the next slide and the other option for asset sale here. The next is called WIPA, as I mentioned before. It is in relation to the Water Infrastructure Protection Act, an act that was passed in 2016. We are actually going through the process with a community now, which will be the very first transaction to close under this act. It took a while to get there, but a very positive process and outcome. And we are so excited to share that with you as soon as it happens. This process takes a little longer. It's somewhere in kind of that 16 to 24 month time frame. And the reason for that is because there's additional layers and additional actions that have to occur. As I said before, it bypasses referendum. Okay, so it has to take a few more steps to ensure the transparency and that the process goes through the multiple layers of approval. It will include an emerging condition study, an engineering study, as well as a financial analysis of the system. Once those are complete, the municipality will then go out for a request for qualifications. Respondents will respond to that. And then the most qualified respondent will be approved. And then you get to sit at the table and have a negotiation based on what a fair market value of that system looks like. And because there's that negotiation, it's a little more flexible in terms of what can be included and the items that can be looked at, rolling in transaction costs and so forth. Then goes through a process of approval by DEP and the BPU. And then the outcome again is once those occur, we then take the time to process a transition, all of those items that we talked about previously, customer information, operational information, institutional knowledge, and even employees, quite honestly. We take that time, make that transition, and again, shake hands, walk out the door, we transition that out. This is not different in terms of the process for purchase price, right? And financial transaction in terms of they still get a purchase price. And we are in the practice of also being transparent about a commitment for investment and working with a community as to what that commitment looks like. That being said, I think that rounds out much of our presentation. If there are questions, we'd be happy to take them here. You can yell them out. You can raise your hand. You can write them in. And quite honestly, if you don't want to do any of that, you can also follow up with an email to ourselves directly. You'll get my information in a minute, Carrie, or the conference directly. Carrie, I'm going to ask you, this is being recorded. I assume we'll share with other members as well as a follow-up.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We'll get the link and send that out. Definitely.
Okay. So any questions, again, we're happy to take them. Don't feel pressure to do so. We are here and responsive anytime that they may come about. Cal, do you want to just one more slide? I know it just shows my information, but for those attending, we do want to make sure that you have our information. If you have, again, follow-up questions, concerns, something that's going on in your system that you kind of want just the best practice and understanding what we might do. We're always open to sharing best practices. It really is about making the entire industry better and making sure that the customers, the residents, the constituents in your communities are being provided safe, adequate service, both on the water and wastewater side. All right, well, thank you. Carrie, any closing remarks?
I want to thank you very much for taking the time and putting this presentation together for our members. This was excellent, a lot of great information, and we will definitely share it with our members, particularly the ones that expressed interest in this. And hopefully, if there are follow-up questions, we can engage in another discussion.
Absolutely, anytime.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark,
Thank you.
for jumping in with
All right.
us today.
You bet.